Okay, hello. Welcome to the first quarterly review of 2025, where I talk about the best and the worst books so far in the quarter. Yay! So, I'm very lucky. I haven't read a ton of books. Now, okay, I've read 12 so far, which is actually a lot. Not as much as I usually read though, but I'm finishing a degree, so I girl is kind of busy. So I'm very lucky. I've read a lot of really good books this year so far. Not as many misses as I expected to. I've also only DNF'd like one or two books, and one of them because it wasn't written very well, and the other one just because I wasn't the right time or place to be reading that. But anyways, I'll start with the good books. So one of the first books I read of the year was Moll Flanders by Daniel Defoe. Now, this was genuinely funny. Miss Moll Flanders, girl, get it. She literally epitome of gaslight gatekeep girl boss. Literally girly number one. I loved her. Yeah, this was funny. It was a quick, easy read for a classic. Yeah, I just really liked it. One of the next books that I really enjoyed that I read was Prisoner of the Infidels. Now, this is something I read for one of my classes, and this is the memoir of a Muslim man from Romania who was captured by the Habsburg military in the 17th century. And it just kind of follows his time in capture, his time as a slave, and then his eventual escape to freedom back to Romania. Now, this was actually really good. I mean, of course it was really good. The author, Osman of Timișoara, he's an incredible writer. This is one of the only books he's ever written, and it was his memoir. He's a very vivid writer. He's a very personable writer, too. And, you know, sometimes I feel like in a lot of memoirs, people don't really reflect the fact that everyone else is human. He put himself bare out there. He put all of his successes and also all of his flaws out there, which I thought was really interesting. If you're into historical memoirs, this is definitely a book to pick up. Yeah, I really liked it. One of the next books that I really enjoyed that I read was The Women of the Cousins War by Philippa Gregory. So last summer, I think I read one of her fiction books and didn't really like it. It was one of her fiction books, like about one of the women in this book. I didn't really like it. So I was a little apprehensive coming into her nonfiction, but I actually thoroughly enjoyed this. I really liked her nonfiction work. And of course, this has David Baldwin and Michael Jones as well, so it's not just her work in here. But I think she's a much better nonfiction writer than fiction, to be honest. The readability of this was really great. It was easy to get through. I had a hard time putting it down because everything was kind of laid out very personably. And okay, like I'm taking history at university right now, so I'm reading a lot of historical monographs, and some of them the writing is not good, but I thought the writing of this, in like all three scholars' work, I thought it was really enjoyable. I enjoyed reading this. I learned a lot too. This follows like some prominent women in the War of Roses, which is a period in English history, kind of essentially right before like the Tudor dynasty. So imagine like Henry VIII. This is his like great grandmother, and then people she knew, basically. This was really good. I really liked it. So if you're into nonfiction, definitely pick this one up. Okay, next is a reread. So for a project for class, I'm talking about Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. So I read this first in 2022, I think, and really liked it. I gave it a 4.5 stars. And so I borrowed it from the library this time because my copy is trapped in a moving box somewhere, which is a little sad. But so I reread it and I gave it a 5 stars this time. This is just such a genuinely enjoyable fantasy book. I think the pre-Columbian Central American influence makes it such a vibrant and unique fantasy book versus like what a lot of what's out there right now. Rebecca Roanhorse, I think, is a really good writer. The world building in this book, I think it was well done. I loved all the characters, and I'm a very character kind of driven person in books, so I really enjoyed this. I like the inspiration. I like the plot too. It's a very queer book, and I love that. It's a very queer book. It's a very Indigenous book, and literally, what more do you want? So definitely Black Sun has my whole heart. All right, and one of the most recent books that I've read that I really enjoyed, I think I finished it like this past weekend. It's Tuesday, and I finished this on Sunday, is In the Shadow of the Banyan by Vadi Ratner. So I was kind of apprehensive to pick this up. I avoided it for like a year, which I don't know why, because this was actually a phenomenal book. So this follows, it's technically a fiction, but it has a lot of the author's like personal lived experience in it. It's from the point of view of a young girl whose family had to flee Cambodia during like the Khmer Rouge rebellion in Cambodia in the 70s. You know, that like god awful basically genocide that happened in Cambodia. So this follows 7-year-old Rami and her journey as like from her home in Cambodia all the way to the States. Now this book, the author is an incredible writer. Everything was so vivid and so real, which was in a way a bad thing, because the way that she wrote like grief and terror was so human and so raw. I like had to take breaks reading this because it's a very heavy book. I will put that out there. Very heavy, but my goodness, this is such a deep book. Especially like it's the point of view of a child, and just the way that she's able to express this child's point of view and how she's coping and processing the horrors that are going on around her and that she's suffering through, I think was really well done. This was really good. I couldn't put it down, even though I had to not be miserable, but this was really good. Okay, now to the not good books. So like I said, I'm very lucky. I did read a lot of really good books. Some of them, I have a lot of like 5 stars, and then I have a lot of like 2.5, 3 stars. In terms of books that I didn't like, I started this last year and unfortunately didn't get it finished before the new year, but I read The Dubious Hills by Pamela Dean. It's like The Giver by Lois Lowry if The Giver had werewolves and was also bad. So yeah, it kind of follows that vibe of, I don't know, like a secluded community who's like hidden from the truth of real life, and there's people who are trying to keep everyone else from like the truth of life, and then there are people who are denounced as like bad people who are trying to show people the truth of life. Can I really tell you what happened in this? No, because I don't think I really understand enough of what happened. It was okay, not my favorite. So it was probably the worst book, and I still gave it a 1.5 star, so that's not so bad. So in terms of books that I read that I just like didn't really like, now I gave this a 3 star, but I read He Who Drowned the World by Shelley Parker Chan, which is the sequel to She Who Became the Sun, which I really enjoyed. Now objectively, He Who Drowned the World was a very well written book, but I think just because I like didn't really want to pick it up, and so I was reading this book for like a whole month. I was reading this book for like the whole month of February. Like that was all, and I was kind of like, oh my god, I just wanted it to be over. I gave it a 3 stars because objectively I know it's a good book. It is like stuck in my memory as like a let's get this over with. Now, what is on my TBR for the next quarter? I'm like 3 weeks away from graduating university, so I'm not going to be doing much reading for the rest of the month of April. I do have to read The Emperor's Tomb by Joseph Roth for a class, which I don't know what this is about. I would like to get to Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin sometime soon. I was doing this thing where I was reading, so I've read the full Game of Thrones series, loved the books, but I was doing this thing where I would read a book and then watch the season, and so I read the first 5, I read all the books, and then when I finished season 5, I didn't want to pick up the show again because every time I thought about it and the fact that there's no books coming out soon, I got pissed off and couldn't keep watching because it like genuinely upset me. So I'm almost done the show Game of Thrones. I think as of today I have season 8 to watch and that's it. But I would immediately like to jump into Fire and Blood. I also, this is my bookmark collection. I also have the illustrated edition. Like, how cool is that? So I'd like to get to that. I would like to get to the Jasad Heir as well by Sarah Hashem. I have that as well. My next nonfiction is going to be Plagues and People by William McNeill. And this is a nonfiction of basically how... Oh, owned by Peter Robb. I got this at a secondhand bookstore. Okay. Sorry, Peter Robb. This one's mine now. It's just basically about how, like, disease and pandemics have essentially changed everything about human history. Like, it's changed the path of human behavior. It's changed human history, like, significantly. Like, there will never be the way that we were before certain pandemics. So I'm really I've had a ton of people recommend this to me, so I'm looking forward to reading it. So that's definitely pretty high up on my TBR. Right now I am currently reading Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Really liking that book. It's just big. I'm like 200 pages in. I'm on a book buying ban this year, and I'm sticking to it. Mark my words, I'm sticking to it. So really, like, my TBR is like what I have on my shelf that I haven't read, and then just like what I can get at the library. That was the quarterly review. Thank you for listening. I don't have anyone to talk about books with, and the people on my Instagram don't care. So now you get to hear me talk about books. Yeah. I hope next quarter is more productive than this past quarter, but that's just how life goes. And yeah, thanks for listening. I appreciate it.